Hey there, my name is Aaron Hayfel. I've been booking shows in Dubuque, Iowa since 1999. And I used to have bands at my house all the time, and we would sit up late, bullshitting, talking about things. And I haven't gotten to do that in a while. So this last couple of months, I've been getting together with some people and trying to recreate those moments a little bit and have some good conversations with musician friends I've met over the years. Today, we've got my buddy Elliott Whitmore. How you doing, Will?
I'm doing great, Aaron. It's good to see you.
Good to see
really
you,
is.
bud.
We really haven't seen each other in I guess it's been maybe a few months ago. We would see each other at shows sometimes here and there.
Definitely. I mean, the Seed Savers thing.
Oh yeah, that was great. Wasn't that your birthday?
Yeah, a couple of years ago. That was a good one. That was Seed Savers, man. Amazing.
Yeah, so it's great to see you, and it's wonderful to be here. I always love coming to Dubuque a lot. It's one of the places I've played most in the world, and you talked about booking shows since '99. I'm sure, some of those first ones were with me and our friends, and
absolutely. I was going to get to that.
But yeah, we won't skip ahead. But anyway, it's good to see you, and it's just good to be here. I like getting my ass to Dubuque, and those conversations that you talk about, those late night things, and those just talking.
They really happen.
Garbage, and it's the best thing in the world. And now you do it on a podcast.
Trying, see what happens. One question I had for you: What was your first Gabe show that you went to?
Oh gosh, that I went to. It's hard to think back to about 1996 or 1997. I think it might have been the Smoking Popes.
Oh wow!
I think the Smoking Popes played with the Poster Children, both Chicago bands, and I think that's what it was. And we rode up with some buddies. I was either a senior in high school or just out of high school. And going to Iowa City, I live about 90 miles south of there, about an hour and a half south of there. So that was the nearest town you could go to see a show. It felt like the big city to me. Iowa City felt like a big city.
Well, I remember that. I remember that feeling.
Coming from the rural area, and loved the Smoking Popes, and heard they were playing. And I'm sure it was 19 and up to get in. I don't know if we must have snuck in or had fake IDs or something. I had a fake ID for years that looked just like me that I found in a parking lot in Iowa City. Just found it on the ground. The guy looked just like me. His name was Paul LeSueur, and I'll never forget that. So Paul LeSueur, if you're out there,
thank you.
Thank you sorry you had to go to the DMV and get your license back, but it looked just like me. So I used that for years, and probably used that to get into that show. And it just felt so cool to go to a punk rock show at a place like Gabe's, knowing the history, you know, and everything. So many greats have played there. So I think that was the first one, and then a million after that.
How soon after that did you actually move up to Iowa City?
So within a year or so.
Wow.
Within a year or two, I was living up there with those same friends. They were going to college, and I didn't want to go to college. I knew I wanted to play music, and I didn't have college on the mind at all, but they were going to the university there. And so I thought, well, I want to live in the college town and have that experience without all that lousy college.
Right.
I remember going to class. I used to go to classes with those guys sometimes because they don't, I don't know, maybe it's different now, but they didn't know in a big class, they don't know necessarily.
They just let you hang out.
And I would just go to their rhetoric classes with them and stuff. And it was great. So I was getting the full experience, but I loved it because then we would just go to shows all the time. Yeah, I moved up there, and I was playing music already, putting on little DIY shows in my town of Montrose, in a nearby town called Keokuk.
Oh, really? Okay.
We would put on these little shows in this karate dojo. I had cousins and friends that took karate classes from kindergarten on up to teenagers.
Nice open space.
And every level, yeah. And my cousins did that, and we would hang out there. There was no place to hang out, and so you just congregate where the kids were. And
were you just playing local band type stuff, or were you actually bringing people in at that point?
So it started like my cousin and I would just we were starting to play guitar, and we were playing guitar together, just doing like covers, like doing like literally like Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains. This was the unplugged
that time
were out and stuff, like the Who and stuff like that, and we would just bring our guitars to hang out, and like while they did karate, while they were doing their moves and going through their things, we would just kind of hang out, and no one cared, and we would kind of strum and stuff, and it somehow got the idea like we should do a show here. Or, let's do a planned thing. Like, we didn't know, DIY wasn't even in my vocabulary.
Sure.
I knew about Fugazi and Minor Threat, and maybe I'd heard the term DIY from, reading an article in Thrasher.
But you wanted to make a show happen.
From Ian MacKay or something like, do yourself. So we started doing that. Like so often happens in towns, you just start to do it. And so my cousin and I would just do like cover songs, and then we started writing songs, and people started coming. Like, we would make flyers and staple them up in our little town and kind of get a little thing going. So I'd done that, and then I knew, for me, going to Iowa City was like the next thing. It was like, oh, okay, going to Gabe's.
Yep.
Could I get on stage there? And like I tell younger aspiring musicians all the time, like, just when you're wondering how to get started, like, just go somewhere, start to make friends, see what the scene is like, go to a city and start to make friends and see what happens. So that's what it was, and that's a long way to say, like, I had been doing a few shows, but then moving to Iowa City felt like a big deal,
So when we met formally would have been, I think, September of 99. However, I had seen you, I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was your band 20 Minutes opening for P.W. Long.
Yeah, that's right.
And I don't know if that was 98, 99-ish. Was that the band that with your cousin, or did you form that in Iowa City?
So that got formed in Iowa City. The thing with my cousin that we'd been doing was like an acoustic duo, because no one had any drums, and we didn't even know a drummer, we didn't even know a bass player, and so we did that. But then, moving to Iowa City is like, oh, well, all of a sudden, as I said, you're meeting new people. Oh, well, here's a drummer, here's a bass player, and you meet like skateboarding late at night or something, and you're like, oh, you like the band Screeching Weasel, like you're wearing a Screeching Weasel t-shirt, or whatever, like, and you just meet in these ways and form this crummy little band, and it was so much fun, called 20 Minutes, and so we would go to Gabe's all the time, even though we were underage. We were like 19 by then, but with fake IDs and stuff, and you start drinking there, and pretty soon the staff all knows you. And you sort of, then you're in. You're kind of like, oh, my usual. And you get a picture of
4 years later when you're like, hey, it's my 21st.
Right.
You're like,
Doug Roberson goes, oh, what the hell? The booker there, he's like, God damn it, kids. But by then we'd spent about $10,000 in there. And so he's like, I gotta.
You're in.
Cool.
You're in.
We're good. But the booker, his name was Doug. And he was really good about like, oh, you guys kind of sound all right. You want to open for like bands that would come through, and we had sound nothing like P.W. Long. No one does. But he was always kind of a hero ever since that. The first thing I heard of his was that We Didn't See You on Sunday.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'd heard Mule,
yeah,
and loved Mule, but then that We Didn't See You on Sunday was his solo album. Really still strikes a chord. If I want to cry, like, I can put that on.
I feel like that for me was like a reintroduction to country music a little bit. Like I hadn't really been in love with country music for the years prior, because I'd gone full Nirvana or whatever it was, and then gotten into punk rock and further down that rabbit hole. And then PW comes out with that, which is, got a couple of traditionals on it, and it was like, oh, like,
yep,
here we are.
Yep, I felt exactly the same. It was like, man, I'm not feeling like the Garth Brooks and some of the pop country that was happening, and always like Johnny Cash and Hank Williams, and but again, same as you, sort of like had put that to the back of my mind for punk rock and stuff like that. And so P.W. Long kind of going back and reaching back into some of that stuff. He does like Jack of Diamonds, which is an old traditional song, and Bound to Ride, and some really good stuff. And then his originals are these real tearjerkers, you know. And so when he came through town, he was he was on a record called Push Me Again.
Yep.
Yeah, which is great. Another great album.
A little more rocking.
Yeah, a little more rocking. It felt a little more Mule. He was going back to the Mule days and stuff. I think they were on Touch and Go, right?
Oh, yeah.
That stuff.
Yeah, those records. And then he had he had a keyboard player.
Yeah, and it was...
Which had like a little soul to it. It's greasy. It was nice.
Oh, it's so good. So they were coming through town, and Doug let us open up, and it was really fun, and we sound nothing like them, and we sucked. Like, I loved my friend. We had so much fun, but we sucked, and that's okay. But I remember they were really late. P.W. Long and his band, P.W. Long and Real Foot.
Yep.
And they were really late. But so by the time they got there, and like Preston was already pretty drunk, you know, and which is, you know, sadly that was his way. So, and they didn't sound amazing, but it was so much fun. It didn't matter. We were so into it, and so we would open up those shows like that. But I know you booked him years later.
I did, and I had you open.
Oh, that's right.
But
here in town, yeah.
A little addition to that was after I'd met you, tracking you down, finding out that you had a bootleg of that show, and then here's the asshole that I am. When it wasn't, I don't know why it wasn't the full show. I fucking called you again. I was like, dude, I don't think this is the whole thing.
I don't remember that. No,
I was like, I felt like such a dumbass, but because they did a cover of "Come Together," and I was like,
and it wasn't
on there, and I was like, oh, I lost my mind. But it was,
I don't.
That was just me being a
that.
fucking nerd. That was about it. That was.
Well, it's because you get emotional about the things you love very much, and I'm sure you weren't a dick. I'm sure you were just like, dude. But we did have whoever threw the soundboard. It was probably Johnny Hopkins or that was running sound, and. It was a big deal to just get a CD of your stuff, you know, like just a live. We're like, hey, can you record our set? And then he got like 15 minutes of their set or something, and it doesn't sound we sound like crap. They don't sound that great. You can tell they're pretty drunk. Already, like they showed like they were drinking in the van on the way there. Apparently,
it was still great, and I still very much appreciated it.
It didn't matter. Yeah, it was so much fun. But so you were at that show. You drove from Dubuque to come see the show.
Yeah. I mean, PW was like Mule had actually played Dubuque in like 95. And I saw that as like a 15 or 16-year-old kid. And for whatever reason, like Touch and Go's got a lot of love in Dubuque. So anything associated with that, I tried to catch as much of it in Iowa City or whatever as I could. You mentioned Johnny Hopkins and I know Bronson probably would have been another one. How much? I mean, I know that they were friends. They became friends. I'm sure. Did you learn a lot from them? Like as far as what's expected, like from sound guy to performer. Can you?
Yeah, over the years, definitely. In the beginning, I wasn't paying attention as much as I should have been in those very early days, but definitely from those guys as years went on, becoming more friends. You just show up enough, and you hang around enough, you become buddies, and they had a band called Scrid, those two, and with two other guys that were our friends too, but they, I don't know, 3/4 of them were from down near where I live.
Oh, wow.
In Burlington and Fort Madison, kind of down the Mississippi River. And so we knew of this band called Scrid that are like, they're not that far from here. So I had friends in high school that knew about them, like way before I had moved to Iowa City or anything. They're like, there's this band called Scrid, and they've got like a CD, they made in a studio, and like a real band, and they're from like Fort Madison and Burlington, but they live in Iowa City now, and it's Craig and all
Nate.
Those guys. Yeah, Nate, yeah. And they were awesome, just really grungy, or not grungy, gritty, grimy. That's what I mean to say. Not grunge as in the type of music. Grunge as in like dirty rock, sludgy rock riff.
I think
rock.
both Bronson and John had dreads maybe
Yep.
for a while.
Just gritty.
Yeah.
Gritty. But it was awesome. And yeah, Craig, the singer, was known for his like spitting skills. He could spit a loogie to the ceiling and have it like stay connected to his mouth. So, and just all this like weird gross stagecraft. But they were just gritty. But they made a CD, and then later to kind of become like friends with them. And yeah, two of them were
sound guys.
We're sound guys, and Craig like would work the door, and Nate was just around. You know, it was just everyone was just around. And so I did end up gleaning a lot from what is expected from the artist, what's expected from the sound person, and they were learning. They were only a few years older than me.
It's true. I think about that when I ask you. I'm like, oh yeah, well they were probably figuring it out as it goes as well.
But even that few year difference when you're 19 and someone's 23.
Oh yeah.
That's they're a senior and you're a freshman.
Yep.
You know, that never goes away. So, but they were cool, and then over the years really becoming like buddies with those guys. Now I see Bronson when I go to the Twin Cities.
Yep.
He lives up there and is doing really good. And Johnny Hopkins has sadly passed away.
R.I.P., yeah.
But years later, I ended up bringing him on tour to like do sound for me on tour and stuff. And so it's weird, all that stuff that comes back around years later.
Well, people helping each other out too, in a way, you know. That's beautiful.
That's the thing. Like telling artists that are trying to get into it, and I really should be taking advice. People ask me advice of how to break into whatever. I need to be taking advice from like a 20-year-old. It needs to switch around. I'm like, how do I have a social media presence? How do I do anything? I should switch it. I need to be listening for advice. But I tell kids, younger, trying to get into it, just make a scene, make your friends,
just make art.
Make art, and other people will help you you can make art by yourself, but it's better with some friends.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell people, and have fun. Have fun doing it. But as I reminisce and think back to those are some of my good friends still now, seeing you and from all, booking those shows 25 years ago, that's what matters. Throughout it all, that's what mattered.
Well, that ties in really well with my next question or topic is that when I did finally meet you, it would have been September of 99. We had, in August, driven to see Melt Banana at Gabe's, and they had van troubles, didn't make it, but this other crazy band called the Vita Blue were opening up, and it was one of those moments for me personally where my mind just kind of fucking exploded. And I was like, I had heard a lot of, Shellac, Jesus Lizard, stuff like that was wild and weird. This was different. I don't know how to even describe what it was, but it was different. And as soon as they were done, I was like, hey, do you guys want to come over and play Dubuque sometime? And they were in a point where they were like, fuck yeah, they were taking shows. And they said yes. And so by end of September, they were coming up to play a show. They got you with them, and they're like, "Hey, do you mind if our friend Will play some songs while we set up?" And I go, "Yeah, that's fine. Please go for it." And then that's how I met you, and then that just kind of got the ball rolling for. I think you must have been doing the solo thing for a bit, already. But it definitely got the ball because people started to know you as much as they kind of did the Vita Blue, and then you would be coming up here for just your own shows. I mean, pretty quickly after that. So,
well, it's thanks to you, because you could have said, you would have been in your rights to go no, that wasn't really the plan. We're not going to have somebody else play. You by rights, you could have said,
sure.
Yeah, that's not. But that, of course, that's not your personality, and that's not the spirit of this whole weird DIY thing. Bands could jump on. How many shows where there's 10 bands because hey, my buddies, they're passing through town. Can they? Yep, get them on the band. Get them on the show, So that was the spirit of it. And so in that spirit, you let me play banjo or play guitar or whatever. And because I was kind of their roadie, but then I had aspirations to
Do the
Like,
thing.
Do the thing. And it's because of people like you that said, yeah, sure. And I was, as coming into town, I was passing by like the one flight up.
Yep. Building, yeah.
The building, it's not, that business is gone, but that building and thinking of like the old CD for Change record
downtown,
store. And just over the years, all these weird shows
that we had to do it. I mean, it was just, that's how you do DIY shows, is you got to find the fucking place that says yes.
Yeah.
And do it.
Yep. And a person like you, and their need. I always think of you as sort of this, the beacon of all that type of thing. Like there needs to be an Aaron like in every town. And as we started touring, we started touring the nation, like.
Because you were a roadie for Vita Blue 10 Grand. I mean, pretty consistently, right? Like,
yeah, and we would do that same thing. We'd show up in like Portland and like, hey, can our buddy play a few songs? And usually they'd let me. And it would be at some VFW hall or a house show or maybe a venue. Once in a while, it was like a real rock venue, but it was often a hall or whatever that they rented. But there's that person that is the Aaron Hafel of their town, meaning they like took it upon themselves to go, like, okay, I can do this. I think I actually have a skill at this. It takes a lot of organization and a lot of headaches and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
It's a couple headaches, here and there.
So I always, whoever that person is, I thank them and say, thank you for like being the person in this town. Because, sometimes you'd pass through again the next year and like, the so-and-so, they're done. They couldn't,
Venue's gone.
Venue's gone. Yeah, they shut down because of noise things. And that dude moved to LA or whatever. And so it's this fragile thing. People like you have kept up,
Another thing that ties in well with the friends aspect is you were a relatively quiet act in comparison to some of the stuff that you were touring with early on. Now, was that generally met with positive reaction, or did you ever catch hell? Like, were people like, "The fuck's this?" Was that ever really happen much?
Strangely, no.
That's awesome.
Strangely, no. Like it was really weird how primed people were. They didn't know it, but they were like primed for what I was about to do. Like they would see the banjo come out of the case and like, oh, okay, we can kind of like sit. Sometimes they would just like sit down. It's at this in an Elks Lodge in Sheboygan or whatever, and like, oh, we can kind of like take our earplugs out and sit down. They didn't always do that. Sometimes they would stand up or whatever, but almost always super respectful. And maybe it was out of curiosity. Maybe it was not that they necessarily even dug it, but it was sort of like you're looking at a weird thing that's happening. Mm-hmm. I think some of it was that. It was just like, oh,
it's unique.
I'm seeing a weird thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be the one guy person that's going to yell. We'll just keep it. I think a lot of it was just people were being polite. Strangely, that scene, it was like more polite than you would think if you were an outsider looking in and seeing like a bunch of kids with Misfits t-shirts,
right?
And like we used to call it the Vulcan, the Spock haircut.
Yes,
that was rampant in the early 2000s. The like, just these styles, just these kids, these weirdo kids, but like, oh, it's for the most part like very polite, very cool. They all understand that there's a delicate machinery here doing these shows. No one's getting. I mean, people were drinking beer, I guess, and stuff. Mm-hmm. But a lot of these were all ages where there wasn't really alcohol. You drink in the parking lot later or whatever. So people were cool. Like it wasn't that rowdy. And
more respectful than sometimes some of your Bud Light, Busch Light crowds.
Strangely, you'd think it'd be
You never know. It's tough.
People are people.
Yeah.
But strangely, it was always cool. I think people knew they were seeing something different. And so that was a way in. That was just a way to stick out and be unique.
And then by the time you're going out with like Converge and Clutch, I mean, that's them probably asking you or some sort of like tour package situation. Is that right? Or
Yep. And a booking agent, my booking agent at the time, that was a bulldog on my behalf. He was like throwing Hail Marys of like, yeah, do you want to open up for Clutch for a couple months, or Converge, or and people like that, and luckily the band's like approved it. The band has to say yes, but they heard me and said yes, and which was cool. And even at those giant shows like that, strangely, people would like kind of quiet down and listen. And to this day, I still have people at shows wearing Clutch, the classic Clutch logo, like that are from, like, I saw you in 05 in Sayersville, New Jersey.
Yeah, or at Gabe's.
Yep. Played at Gabe's. I remember that was super hot. It was the summer. We did Harry Mary's and Des Moines.
Oh, wow.
But even at those giant shows, like the Converge shows were in England, and they were giant. Like, to me, you know, like a 1,500, 2,000 cap, giant places, you know. And strangely, people would shut up and listen. And I don't know how or why they did it, but they gave me the grace to, like, just do my thing.
Do you, for what you're doing, do you see a difference in the touring U.S. versus UK, Europe?
There's definitely a difference. And kind of the thing that most people will talk about is that depending on who, like what level you're at, really probably at every level, like you're kind of much more taken care of in like Europe especially on the continent, and England to a lesser degree, but there's a, I don't know what the divide is there, but in Europe, like if you do like Germany, France, Spain and Italy and Czech Republic and stuff like that, they give you a room, they give you food, they're so glad you came, you're all set up, you have a place to stay, you don't have to worry about it. Oftentimes it's like upstairs of the venue. Like, wow. You're staying right upstairs. It's kind of set up. It's set up for touring bands to, like, you play and then you go upstairs and have a huge pot of vegan chili.
Hell yeah.
And everyone eats from the same pot of vegan chili and we all get together and we do it. And in England, it's like that to a lesser degree, but that's what most bands talk about, is that you're just much more taken care of over there.
Did you ever end up at like a squat like the Fugazi guys talk about or anything like that? Have you played places like that?
Definitely. Oh yeah, because I went over there with Vita Blue became 10 Grand. They had to change their name.
Right.
And so, but it's the same guys. So I ended up going out with them over there. That was my first time over there, and it was in 2003 when their first Southern record came out, and at the height of like the Iraq War and Bush being so unpopular, and we were just like, oh, we're embarrassed to like be American. Like we just felt like, oh no, are we gonna get shit for like being American and stuff? And of course, it's not really like that. The average person on the street isn't. No one cares. Or they care, but they're not gonna. They know that
blame you.
You started the war personally or something. So that was one. I was like, oh, no one cares. But we ended up doing, like in Italy, we did a few squats, like in Germany. And you'd end up doing these old, like, a lot of the World War II structures and infrastructures and bunkers and things are still there. Mm-hmm. And so they'll have raves in them or put on DIY shows or whatever. And I've always kind of thought that was cool, where you'd take, and hell, I mean, there was like Nazi, like this was an old Nazi bunker, you know?
Right,
which is very wild,
like,
wow. This is so evil, but then
morbid,
But then you take it and do a positive thing in there, and it's like taking something evil and
repurposing for good,
trying to make it beautiful. Yes, and so I liked that spirit. So yeah, we did tons of those things, and they're like, oh, people live here. Like, this is a venue, but also there's these weird little makeshift rooms that people live in, you know. And I'm like, wow, these people, they're about that life, you know.
So how soon after that, you did 3 records on Southern, right? Mm-hmm. How soon after that last record on Southern did Anti approach you?
I had talked to Andy from Anti actually while I was on Southern Records. He had come out to a show in LA at a place called the Troubadour, actually with Clutch.
Oh wow!
Oh no, sorry, not the Troubadour.
Roxy.
The Roxy.
Yeah.
The Roxy. Yes. Troubadour is like a smaller kind of folk. Well,
everybody played there, yeah.
But they do rock music too. They do everything. I played there a bunch of times too. But this was at the Roxy. The guy from Anti came and asked me about my contract with Southern, and I was like, well, I've got another album to do. And so there was a little weird kind of period there where I really wanted to be on Anti, but I loved Southern and they were so good to me. But so.
There's only so much that a smaller label can do, and it's like...
And I owe them one more record, and we're under contract, and they're my friends. Like, I love those guys, but I saw stars in my eyes and was like, oh, Epitaph, Anti, and so did that record. It was called Song of the Blackbird, and it was that last record for them. And it was sticky, man, because leaving the label then was kind of sticky because we were friends, and there was some... It stunk, and we have we're all friends now again.
Cool,
and,
good.
And all. In fact, I saw Danielle from Southern out in California like earlier this year, and we've long been patched it up and been cool.
And they had to kind of, I don't know if did they completely hang it up or did they like just kind of slow down operations or?
It kind of slowed. There was a lot of complicated reasons behind it that I'm not even privy to all of it. But they were based in London, and that was the main office. But they had one in Germany, in Berlin, and then they had one in Chicago. So the one in Chicago is the one I dealt with, and that was. And so it's the one in Chicago slowly. It had nothing to do with me leaving or anything. I don't think, but it began a series of things that kind of just weren't. And it was like the record industry in general, I think, was
having a hard time then too. Yeah,
and
switching to online or digital, and what's going to happen with that right around then.
Yep, exactly, and everyone just wondering what to do, and so it just slowly kind of went away, and they put out a bunch of great stuff, and now Numero Group's been
released
stuff. Like some 90 Day Men, I think some Karate.
I see they're going to play a show.
90 Day Men?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. Cool. Because I've been a fan of... They've all went on to do these other great bands. I love those guys. I did a tour with them in England.
Oh, wow.
Which, again, it was so much fun, but it was like, we're Southern... We're on Southern Records, and I do this weird thing, and you guys do that weird thing, and they were so nice. But then after they broke up, all the various bands that they've had...
I just saw Fax the other night.
Oh, Fax are great.
Yeah.
Fax are great. And so that's cool. They're going to do shows. Wow. I wonder if it's kind of because of that Numero Group.
It's probably a little bit of that. I mean, I don't know if they're going to do like a bunch, but it's it's like 2 nights at the Empty Bottle and whatever.
For fun.
It's good. I'm glad to see it. I don't know if I will be able to get to see that, but I saw them.
Yep.
It was. Yep. They were good. I remember, man. They were a good band.
Yeah, I played a house show with them. It was those guys, Sweep the Leg Johnny, and it was supposed to be Luster King. Which at the time I didn't know Mike Lust yet.
Oh, wow.
I knew his band Luster King. They had a record out on Divot at that time, but they couldn't make it, and so it was Sweep the Leg Johnny and 90 Day Men and 20 Minutes at this house show. Which again, like it's like that was an example of like we're kind of doing this punk mixed with like. Definitely some ska. Definitely we heard some Rancid, and we're like, let's try to be like Rancid. It was kind of a mess, but it was fun, and I stand behind it. And it was fun and stuff. But then to see a band like Sweep the Leg Johnny or 90 Day Men
kind of destroy the room.
Like, you're not doing it. I didn't even know music could sound like this. Yeah. It's weird time signatures. I didn't know the term math rock yet. I was like, I didn't. It would later from there, I'd go back and find bands like The Birthday Party and like just weird old like they're not math rock, but just weird kind of what someone would call angular.
Gang of Four.
Gang of Four and stuff like that. But to see it in real time, like
you're like, what the fuck?
I didn't know you could just like yell and scream and have weird time signatures.
Notes are not sounding right, but then they are.
It's right, and it's like
and it grooves. What?
Yeah, and it kind of grooves, but then it's a mess for a minute, but then it goes back to the groove. Like, oh wow, it really like opened up a whole new thing.
That's two good bands to have that happen with. That's pretty special.
It was really cool, and then so later to be on Southern, and it's because of 10 Grand. It's because of Vita Blue. Like they got on Southern, so then they let me on. They liked me enough to do it too. So that was a meandering story that goes through a lot of different time periods. But the thing about going to Europe, it was just they're just so glad you came.
Yeah,
it's like going to Australia is the same way.
Okay,
they're so glad you came, and you're just fully taken care of.
Well, even more so there. I don't know if people make it. I mean,
it's hard to make
Yeah.
that 20-hour plane ride or whatever. And so they're just so thankful. Australia's awesome. And Europe and England. And I haven't gone to any of those places in a while because I don't love flying anymore.
mhm.
But it's just a different thing. What I do love about touring in the States is that I have more control. Like, I'm in my own car. I just have a lot more control over what's happening. So there's good and bad about touring in different places. But back in the day, I remember that it was a big deal when you'd show up at the venue and they'd have food for you. And they'd say, oh, and here's some beds. Like, it was nothing fancy, but it was like a room with some beds and pillows. And it just felt like so fancy. It felt so like they really cared that you came.
Inviting, warm. You know,
Yeah.
it's nice that when you get that kind of a welcome. You know, it's tricky. I know the States is not always like that.
Well, because it's not, how would you pay for that, or how would you
All the time,
You know,
it's tough.
Who would clean up after the band leaves? Who cleans up that room? Now you need. It just takes an army of volunteers. And
So how many records did you do for Anti?
three.
3 records on Anti.
Yeah, the 3-record deal was like such a standard.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's that way anymore. I don't think there are already standards anymore. But back then, a 3-record deal was pretty common, with the option, if the first one didn't do anything, they can drop you. But if it does enough, they can then
Retain it, keep going.
Yep. And so they have the option to back out if they want, but a 3-record thing. And so in my mind, like in those southern days, I was like, oh, I'll make a 3-part. To me, it was kind of a trilogy. It was like a 3-part. It could have been 1 record in 3 parts, but it was like, oh, it's 3 records, and that's how I made it in my mind.
Now, was it Luke or was it you that did the artwork for all those records?
Luke did all the sculptures.
Really cool stuff.
Yeah, and I loved old, like there was this band called Rex. They were on Southern, maybe, or, and just these like weird shadow box art, and but my cousin was doing that at the time, and so it was cool to have. Like, hey, I get to make a record. You should make the cover. And again, it's your friends, it's your family. You're getting like, oh, I'll get my buddies to play on it. You can do the cover. Let's make it a family affair. And so that's how I've always really liked doing it. And then Anti was 3 albums, and then Bloodshot.
When did you land on Bloodshot?
That was after. That was like in 2018.
Okay, I feel like that. I don't know how you're feeling about it. It just seems like. I had always kind of just thought that you should have been on Bloodshot the whole time. Maybe not the Southern stuff, but I mean, like eventually, like it should have. That's one of the labels I was like, why the fuck isn't Will on Bloodshot? What the fuck?
Yeah. I remember going to this record store in Iowa City called Sal's.
Oh, yeah, the Music Emporium.
Sal's Music Emporium. Back when there was like 10 record stores in Iowa City.
Yep.
And Sal sort of specialized. He had everything, but he sort of specialized in like country, what this new thing was called alt country.
Sure.
Which was, like, Whiskey Town and
Uncle Tupelo or
Uncle
whatever.
Tupelo, yep, exactly. Nico Case and the Sadies, and you could get 7 inches for a few bucks, and they were all on this label called Bloodshot, and so was a fan of theirs for years. And a guy that used to work at Southern started working at Bloodshot. This guy named Pete Klockow, and he's like, man, you should like submit. If the Anti thing doesn't work out after the 3rd record or whatever, you should, talk to us.
Give us a shot.
And whatever. Yeah. And Anti has been awesome, but I didn't kind of do as good as they would have liked me to do.
I mean, they're like it's crazy to me to think of Epitaph as like
they're an indie, but they're like
fucking big. I mean, it's a big deal.
They have to be the big, like maybe not the biggest, but
up there.
I mean, when Smash by Offspring came out, that floated Epitaph till now. Still probably that sold. Like
Bad Religion's doing good, but I mean, Offspring's probably still selling.
Like Rancid and all that, but like that album Smash was like the biggest selling one, and so that, but yeah, that got Epitaph through some hard times, and probably still, that still doesn't
hurt. Yeah.
So they're an indie, but they're giant, and I love those. We're cool. We're all cool. I just didn't sell as many records as they would have liked or whatever. So that was fine. But then talking to the Bloodshot folks, and then that sort of you could do a whole other podcast about how Bloodshot had a bunch of trouble, and there was a lot of crummy behavior by real creeps. One real creep in particular, and that sort of resonated out to a whole big thing.
Yeah.
And sort of crumbled it. That version of Bloodshot.
And it kind of resurrected about a year or two later. Yeah.
Yeah. This group bought it and are now working again and doing, and they're cool. They've been treating me cool. They like gave me the rights back to, because I did one covers album.
Yep.
So I didn't write those songs, so I wasn't as into getting the rights back to that. And then this album called I'm With You, that they let me have the rights to it back, and they didn't have to do that. But this guy David used to work at Anti, like one of the it's like 5 people that and they have a name for their group, and Acceleration Music, and they all have these indie backgrounds, and they got together and bought Bloodshot and like the catalog, and which is.
That's really fucking cool. I did not know that.
It's like Justin Townes Earl, the old Nico Case. Like there's some good. They bought them, and but the guy David used to work at Anti and remembered me from then, and was like, you know what, we'll allow you to have the rights to that back, which is a really big deal. So now I own that. I mean, no one else would do that,
right?
Because they're buying the catalog. They want, not that was ever a big seller for them or whatever, but. It came out in 2020. It didn't have the chance to be a big seller.
Well, yeah, things got a little fucked up.
But he was a mensch for doing that. And so much love to those guys. And then they've gone on to do their Bloodshot thing.
Keeping with that, like, do you maintain your masters?
So I do on some of mine. So the not the Anti stuff. Those 3, they have, but they're really good with royalties, and I'll tell them that, like they're good with keeping those checks coming, and they have a whole machinery that like the checks are on time and they come and the royalties are sweet, but they own the masters. And when I didn't understand the contract when I signed it, I didn't know that was back when I didn't know keeping the masters was like a big deal,
a thing, yeah.
And so, but they have them, but I get royalties from that. I re-recorded the Southern stuff. In order to, before Britney Spears ever did it.
Taylor Swift, or was?
Sorry, Taylor Swift is what I meant. 2 different people. Sorry, Taylor Swift. This is back in 2014. I because you own the song. You don't own those recordings, but you own the songs. So if after 5 years, after the last record came out, which. Song of the Blackbird came out in 2006, so 5 years after that, in 2011 or 2012, we started re-recording all that stuff so that I could own those. I can't own the old stuff, the original stuff that Mike Lust recorded.
Okay,
but I can own these new versions, and that's what's like streaming online and stuff now. And so, and I pressed them on vinyl, and so I own those. So that was Luke's idea. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Right.
But he was shrewd. And
so you recorded those first 3 records with Mike, but then I think Luke got the studio going in
like 2008.
Yeah.
When we were doing Animals in the Dark.
Okay.
We got a little advance from Anti, and so we used it to like build a studio basically.
Wow.
Instead of going to a studio, it was like, well, let's take this money and build a studio in your garage.
Yeah. And because Luke's smart as fuck. I mean, I don't know how long he's been recording, but if you have the ability, I mean.
Yeah, that was the beginning of it. And he already was like a real audiophile, and he already knew, even as kids, he knew all about stereos and knew, so he's well suited for it. And so he's like, we should re-record these, and then you can own them. And then if some little indie movie or if like a little commercial or something wants your song in it, you don't have to ask. Because before I would ask Southern, and sometimes they'd say yes, sometimes they'd say no, or sometimes they wouldn't return my emails all the time from London. Like,
sure.
And it got to be a little hard. Now I don't have to ask, and I get 100% of the money. So I own those, and then, I got I'm With You back. And then, this newest one is called Silently the Mind Breaks, and I just put it out on my own little imprint. I was all the label stuff was starting to give me a headache.
Yeah,
and I was like, I'm just gonna put it out myself and see how that goes. And so I own 5 of my own masters, 5 out of the 9 records. But I would sell that to kids. Like now, people are weary of that when they sign a contract.
Right.
Some places might let you keep your own masters if you negotiate the right if you can negotiate it right and stuff. I didn't know how to do any of that, and so.
Did you make a conscious effort to kind of expand upon your lyrics after that third Southern record? I feel like lyrically you open up a little bit more on Animals in the Dark, and since then, like there's the one song that you're doing about the LSD.
Oh, the MK Ultra Blues.
MK Ultra Blues and stuff like that. Like, I feel like it's the first stuff that you were doing, which is like, it's heartbreaking kind of folk country stuff. And then it moved, and some like good time music. It's a little bit in there. It's in there. But it's almost like lyrically, like you opened up a little bit more. And I don't know if like that was a conscious thing or if like it just kind of was just natural or.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Those first three are very much of a time, and they're very much what I needed to be writing to get through a hard time. And it's about a lot of death, and so those first three, as I said, kind of feel like of a piece to me. They're kind of three parts of an album in a way, and so very much what I was going through at the time. And then after that, I did have it in my mind, like I need to write about other stuff and just let the music, if music is supposed to be a healing thing, like let it be a healing thing. And like, I don't have to keep writing about the death of a loved one. If I sort of feel like healed by it, and like, oh, okay, I could actually kind of move on. And it was this weird, healthy, or I without meaning to, I sort of like, it's like, oh, I feel a lot better.
Music helps us, get through it. Yeah. Say goodbye, make peace, whatever it is. I mean, that's one of the many beautiful things in music.
Yeah. And so you start thinking of like, okay, if I'm a songwriter, can I write about some other stuff? And so Animals in the Dark has there's some political undertones or overtones. And there's, and that was like during the Bush years, the pissed off Bush years, man, the second Bush. And so you like, I can write about what's happening and how I'm feeling about it and stuff. And so it was an effort to open up and write about new things, because you don't want to be writing about the same stuff all the time. And you want to challenge yourself as a musician to like come up with new stuff. And as you're hearing more music too, and you're hearing these great songwriters, like another early one, two more early ones that were influences that weren't country, but they were like acoustic based. The Mountain Goats, John Darnielle, the Mountain Goats, and Will Oldham.
For sure.
Will Oldham, all his different Palace Brothers, Palace Music.
Bonnie Prince Billy,
all that. It's like, it's acoustic, but like it's not country. It's like a folk. Yeah, you could say folk.
Fucking weird folk.
And like I didn't know you could do that. That was a whole other. But like John Darnielle, one of the best songwriters
absolutely
ever.
Both of them, really.
I mean, truly, absolutely. And it was like, you can do that. Okay, you can write about anything. You could write from another person's perspective. It's one of the oldest songwriting things in the world. I just never really. I've always wrote about my own life and stuff.
It's a funny thing, and I've definitely been very guilty of assuming a performer is living the life that they're singing about.
Sometimes they are.
Sometimes they are.
Sometimes they're not. And it's all just the tool to use, like Bruce Springsteen.
Yes.
Or a million, so many people.
I mean, mine was Craig Finn from Hold Steady.
Oh yeah, another one of the greats.
Tons of stories. And it's like he's a person it's like kind of half and half. He's not living all those parties, but he's seen a couple.
Yeah. He's seen enough to like be credible. And now he's another one of the greats that he created his own style.
Yeah,
totally.
A lot of words.
But the old like Lifter Puller into the Hold Steady, like just he's kind of singing in a way that I didn't know.
And he's kind of singing about us, like he's singing about the scene around us, and it's around him. But I mean, the way that things are interchangeable, like everyone, there's a bar where everyone's getting drunk, and there's stuff going on in the bathroom, and there's this and that, and
he paints a whole picture.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy like that.
And so you start hearing more of that stuff, and you start going, oh well, I want to try that, and So it is this
creating
effort to-
characters and singing from a different perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, and looking at reading history books and like, I want to write a story about the MK Ultra LSD experiments. I got a bunch of books from the library, but I want to do it in like that Woody Guthrie like talking blues style. And, just these like, it's almost like a challenge to yourself. Like, could I do that?
You did it.
Yeah, and
Seen you do it.
That's
one of
the most. I'll probably do it tonight. Speaking of, I'm excited to be here playing, man. Getting back to the lift.
I appreciate it, man. It's believe me, like being able to work with you for as long as I have means a lot. It means a ton, actually. And the last thing I wanted to kind of touch on here was, there's a couple. I just want to say, thank you. And I wanted to ask, when did you decide I don't want to live in Iowa City anymore? I need to get the fuck out of here and head back to the country.
Well, first of all, thank you, and because it takes all of us to do this thing, and so thank you for being a compatriot and help. It takes all of us to do this thing, and so thank you, and I appreciate your thanks.
Anytime.
And this is the good stuff. This is what we're doing. When we get despondent about the world and it seems like it just can't go on or whatever, we gotta get up every day and do our best, and
Still got to do it.
And tonight we'll have fun,
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Iowa City, I knew I was done. I wasn't cut out to live in a town.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the country, in the middle of nowhere, in the woods, and on our family farm, which is where I still live. So my folks passed away like when I was in my teens, and so my brother took over the place. That's what those first three records are pretty much about.
Yeah, wow.
And so I'm lucky that like we were able to keep it in the family. My brother lived there for a while, and I was in Iowa City and having a good time, and met some of my best friends that are still my best friends now. And it's such formidable years, and it's not even I think of it as a city, but it's like a very small college town.
It is, right?
Pretty
It's
much.
really like 20 to 30,000 people without the students or something. It's something small. Maybe it's probably a lot more now because I know it's grown, but
to me, like when you live in the woods, like that just feels like the city.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't love this. I don't really like this anymore. I want to get back. And there had been some more deaths that had happened, and it was about like being close to my family, like, and it's not that far away, like 90 miles.
pretty quick.
And so I was like, I'm gonna go live, be with my brother and sister, and but I met the woman who became my wife at Gabe's, like on going up on some visit, or maybe it was like a shadow government show, or like maybe it was one of my shows. I don't remember, but like just meeting her and dancing and having fun, and then all these years later we've got a 4-year-old and we're married, and but it was at Gabe's,
Well,
we met at
magical
Gabe's.
place,
and I just love it so much. And so I love my time there, but I just knew I was like, I got to get my ass back to the woods, man. And I still enjoy going there.
Yeah, it's a nice place to visit.
Just
right?
see shows and see friends, and still a bunch of friends that live there. And there's people doing cool stuff. And
there's a ton of cool stuff. It's the activity going on there now versus, I feel like Iowa City's always been a pretty progressive, politically motivated place, but it seems like obviously there's things going on in the world that are forcing a little more action. It seems.
Yeah.
But actually, I went to a show and I ran into Zach and Joel from 10 Grand, and the diversity at this hardcore show, the diversity in the crowd of not just race but also gender. I was like, man, 20 years ago, this show would be a bunch of black shirts and beards.
Right.
And it's like, it is not that today, and that's fucking
So cool.
That is a good thing.
I'm so glad you saw those guys. I haven't seen them in a little bit, but that's so true. And I'm seeing that across the board, across the nation as I travel, and like to people that come to my shows anyway. I'm not going to shows when I'm on the road. I'm just at the show I'm doing, but I'm seeing the crowds change and diversify, and it's so cool. It really makes me happy, because how fucking boring is it when it is just about
Yeah, and it's like great. It's like you guys are all into it. I appreciate it, but I mean, wow.
Not boring. I just mean
monotonous.
When everyone's all the same.
Yeah, homogenous.
That's never good. And even I'll say, even back in the day, like it was a little more diverse than it probably had been previously.
Exactly, yeah.
Or something.
More and more as it goes, yes.
But it's been so cool to see it a lot more as I travel around, and it gives me some hope for the future, and I don't know, if everyone could run around and see that people are just like you. They're just trying to figure out what's for supper and how to live their life. And they might be a different gender, a different
lot more
person,
commonalities.
or different whatever.
Yes.
Like, I wish you could just talk to that person talk to my trans friends for 5 minutes, and you'll go like, oh, you're just a person doing your thing.
It's very similar problems.
You know, it's like, I wish, but anyway.
Yeah.
I wish that for people that have, I don't get it, whatever. And so that's the key to everything. Like, go meet people, travel around, and see. Like, if you stay in your little bubble, you're gonna
be stuck.
If you have a little racist bubble, you're gonna be a little racist.
Yeah, you're gonna be stuck in it.
So to your point of like going to Iowa City and looking around and going, wow, cool. What show was that, by the way?
Soul Glow.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Where did they play?
Gabe's.
Oh man.
Gabe's, yeah.
I love that
with
band.
Boot Camp, who are multi-gender hardcore band from Iowa City, which is,
I haven't heard them.
they're pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boot Camp.
Tough stuff.
Have you heard Polly Mall Cops?
Oh yeah,
Des Moines?
Greg Wheeler. Yeah, I've got that record. Yeah.
They're I don't know. Like, I did at 8035 Fest in Des Moines. I was playing, I play early on like the bigger stage or whatever, but like early, at like noon or whatever. But then there's, I say that to take myself down a peg. Like, you're on the main stage, but it's at like 11:30.
Wow.
In the morning.
You get to enjoy the rest of your day.
No, but it's fun. I don't care. It's fun. And later, it was Big Boy from Outkast.
Yeah.
Who I got to meet, who was super cool.
Rad.
But Big Boy, he's fucking awesome. But Polly Mall Cops were doing, there's many little like smaller stages and stuff. And I walked by and heard them, and I'd maybe heard the name, but I didn't know what they sounded like. And man, I was like, what is this awesome punk rock that's happening?
Killer.
They were so good.
A lot of good energy.
And you could barely like get into where it was because so many people were gathered around. And I just was like, every time I hear something like that or somewhere where that's happening, I'm like,
feel the energy. You know it.
Stuff.
It makes you. It's a warm feeling inside.
Kids are like kids. I mean, they're probably
they're
our age,
in their 20s or whatever, 30s maybe.
But they're doing it. Like, I'm so glad people are doing weird shit. Of course they are.
Yeah.
I just don't know about all the weird shit that's happening.
You can't.
But when you do witness it, and you're like, oh, good. There's weirdo, fucking freaky. I say that with love. Like, weird freaks.
Absolutely.
Doing weird shit and plugging in weird pedals and making weird fucking noises with weird things. And I'm like, oh, yes, good.
The dream is alive.
Yes, like Karen Meat.
Yep.
I don't know if you like Karen Meat and a bunch of great stuff like that. But I bet that Soul Glow show was pretty awesome.
It was killer. Yeah,
I loved that.
It was a great place to see it. And like I said, it was just the vibe was immaculate, and seeing the progression of the scene from when I started going to Gabe's to then was amazing. But
and then you see a couple old buddies there.
Yeah.
And it just kind of comes all around, and it brings us back to from where we started, which is like seeing an old friend coming to a show and going, and then like 25 years later, you see that old friend again at another show, and you go, "Hey man, how's it going?" And isn't that so good? So thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate it. And
yeah, Will, I really appreciate you being able to sit down and chat with me, and man, I'm looking forward to tonight.
We're going to have fun, and I think it's going to be a good thing, and let's just keep doing it. What do you say?
Yes. Thanks very much, Will.